Hello, my name is Salvatore Vitale, and today we're going to be creating a podcast for our course, Organizational Leadership for Engineers. In this podcast, we're going to be discussing how we can help connect the dots and find solutions when we encounter roadblocks that will help balance out our teams and our projects as engineering managers. So firstly, there's a couple of different kinds of roadblocks that we can encounter, and I want to discuss, a couple of different solutions or some things that I've encountered personally working as an engineer that I think will be a good experience for you guys to hear. And the solutions are all going to be very peaceful solutions that we can resolve inside of our team. So the very first roadblock I want to discuss is the poor communication that can be caused by miscommunication or a lack of understanding on the projects, the requirements, or the different milestone objectives for these projects. A real life example of something I've faced is when my manager will tell me something directly face to face in the office, and then 5 minutes later I am CC'd in the email with my manager where she is telling the supplier some contradiction information from what I just spoke with her. And sometimes this is very deceiving for us as the employees that we would like it to be better. We'd like better communication on this front. So a solution to this is we could help open the communication, just be more upfront and honest with what we're looking for as engineering managers, and we could help keep written logs of some of the things that we discuss verbally, or if we discuss them verbally and we don't write them down, then they're just not as important. I also want to discuss the objectives and goals for a project being unclear, and when they begin to get confusing of what items we need to prioritize, what are ineffective task execution, that we end up doing multiple duplications of tasks because we don't understand who is completing what task on a project. A real life example of this is where we will set a milestone for a task for a certain given deadline, and it's impossible for us to complete this goal of a project because we need to complete another goal before, and based on project timing in the milestones, we're unable to meet the timing because we need the first task to be completed before the other one is able to be done. So something that we can do to solve this is we can be level set of our expectations with all of the team members, and we can align beforehand for what are individual goals and what are team goals and what is the correct order we need to complete them in on time. Another roadblock that is often found in smaller companies that just don't have enough funding or experience could be the roadblock of lack of resources to tackle a project. Having constraints and tight deadlines or just not enough talented engineers can be one of the more difficult roadblocks to overcome without the right knowledge or expertise. And a real life example of this is something where we were giving an old piece of hardware for a camera that we got from a previous group, but there wasn't a lot of knowledge passed down. We were just given the item and told make it work, and because of that, we needed to work on finding a solution with this camera to provide outputs for our milestones that we needed. Something that we also additionally encountered where we'll create a project and we'll just have one engineer working on the project, and we'll see is the project successful or not. And if it is successful, then we can move other engineers off of their projects onto the project that's more successful, and we could continue to scale that way. Although this is easy to overcome with adequate funding, there's another solution where you can work on prioritizing what resources are important for what projects and completing the tasks that are most important to get done and delivered on time. And if there's still even more work to be done, you can work on outsourcing some of the work to automation or to external contractors to help you complete the goal. Another roadblock that could end up being major if not resolved quickly is scope creep with the customer, working on continuously asking more and more to be delivered for the project than what was originally agreed upon. By doing this, you're preventing the project team from meeting their milestones and objectives based on their timeline if they're working on completing additional work for basically free that the customer will work for. An example of this is I was working for a major American OEM who would always ask for more and more little tests along the way that would prevent us from getting our major milestone work done. And in the end, we were behind on the timeline because we were spending too much time focusing on the smaller objectives that weren't included in the milestones of the project. A solution to this would be to keep a strict change control management procedure so that if the scope did need to change for a justified reason, the customer would have to work with higher level management to get it approved for an increase in timing and budget to allow us to increase the amount of effort and work done to increase the scope of the project. On the other hand, on the other side of the coin, there's times where there's just not enough customer involvement on a project and there's no direction or sense of idea of what they want other than just a main goal. Something that can happen oftentimes is you're working for many months on a project without communicating with the customers, and then once they see the progress that's being worked on, they're unhappy with the progress and they're going to ask for some modifications or some changes that may or may not interfere with the project timeline. So something that I encountered was I worked on a project where we had created a test plan and we had to set up a data collection, and we spent 3 months working on the data collection before we received input. And once we did receive the input, we found that there was something that they definitely 100% did not want in the test plan that we needed to take out, and resulted in us needing to retake the time and effort to recreate the new test plan. So something that can help be a solution to this is if you are communicating very regularly, almost on a weekly basis with the customers or the stakeholders to ensure that the progress that you are working on is satisfactory to their level. And if it's not, then you can catch the issue early and often and make the changes at that time. Lastly, there's one more roadblock that I want to discuss that's arguably one of the most important roadblocks that is a result of internal conflict in the team, of just different working styles or different personalities not being able to mesh well together in the professional settings. These can really negatively affect the team morale and the confidence in delivering for a project. I myself personally have dealt with this in the workplace where I wasn't fine with the coworkers not arriving to meetings on times or not being prepared for these meetings. And I went about it the wrong way when I confronted them and asked them to just show up on time and to be more prepared. And because of that, it resulted in a lot of anger and discomfort for both people. A better solution for this would be to work on some team bonding activities, so that way the employees are working on their own relationships, but also relationships that will help the company moving forward. So once you do encounter issues moving forward, you're able to encounter them and overcome them together more as friends than just workers that are forced to be together. Creating a positive work environment, I think, is one of the hardest things to do, but once you are able to, it's one of the more rewarding roadblocks to overcome and achieve. So that's been my discussion and podcast here for week 3. Thank you very much. I feel totally free to answer any questions in the comments. Thank you very much.